You got people that are resentful towards her. But it's really not about her, guys. It's about what she represents.
To be clear, Caitlin Clark is being fouled at a record rate. Some of them are brutal fouls, and a lot of the refs are looking the other way.
Fortunately, it's creating a textbook hostile work environment for Caitlin Clark. And under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, the federal government does have an ability to engage here.
Caitlin Clark's WNBA career might be over. And it's not because she's weak, it's because the league didn't protect her. How did one of the WNBA's brightest stars become the league's biggest target?
Caitlin Clark's been hurt.
Caitlin Clark didn't just play basketball when she entered the WNBA. She redefined it. When the Indiana Fever signed her, the WNBA became a global sensation almost overnight. Media outlets couldn't get enough, and fans were tuning in like never before. It wasn't just hype, it was real impact.
Okay, because she's brilliant, right? That's why she's wreaking havoc, because she is so good.
Her presence drove the WNBA's app engagement up by 613%. And how crazy is that? That's more than half of the league's fan base coming online to follow her every move. Subscriptions jumped by 366%, and merchandise sales skyrocketed by 601%. You couldn't walk into a store without seeing Caitlin's jersey.
Attention about Caitlin Clark.
Caitlin Clark has had a seismic impact on the WNBA ever since she first joined. Merchandise sales.
But it didn't stop there. The Indiana Fever's franchise value tripled. They went from an afterthought to one of the league's most valuable teams. One rookie, one name, Caitlin Clark.
But despite all that success that she's immediately had, the league has basically looked the other way as she's been targeted on a weekly basis.
But it wasn't all roses. The bigger Caitlin Clark got, the more uneasy the league seemed to be. So why wasn't everyone celebrating her success? A'ja Wilson, a 3-time MVP, had to watch as Clark's spotlight got brighter. How could this rookie outshine someone with years of experience?
Right after she was drafted and heading into her rookie year, A'ja Wilson, who is a 3-time MVP of the league, she's won the championship for the Las Vegas Aces, she came out and addressed the attention that Caitlin Clark is getting.
But the issue wasn't just on the court. It was much bigger. There was race involved, politics, egos, and let's be real, envy. A rookie, a white one at that, coming in and doing what veterans couldn't, that wasn't just basketball, it was a cultural flashpoint. And Caitlin never asked for any of this drama. She just played. But the second her face was plastered on every highlight reel, everything changed.
It boils her blood when people try and say that it's not about race. And so, unfortunately, it seems like there's a lot of commentary that's being made by players when they're on camera and they know reporters are watching.
The backlash hit hard. It wasn't subtle, and it certainly wasn't professional.
She is taking on harder fouls and at a higher rate than any of her peers. So it turns out that in her rookie season, she absorbed 17% of all flagrant fouls, or hard fouls.
Let's talk about the numbers again. Caitlin Clark took 17% of all flagrant fouls in the WNBA this season. Can you even imagine that? One player, 17%. To put that into perspective, that's more than double the next closest player. And this wasn't just a few aggressive fouls. These were brutal hits, mid-air collisions, blindside checks, the kind of stuff you see in a rugby match, not basketball.
More than double the rate of any of her peers. This is not something that you would see occur to any other top star in any other league. And I think a lot of fans are scratching their heads of why the league is allowing this to continue.
And the referees, they just watched. There were viral clips showing Clark getting fouled 3 or 4 times on a single possession. Nothing, silence. The league didn't step in, but here's the real kicker. Not a single player was suspended for those fouls. No action taken, not even a slap on the wrist. It was like the league was telling everyone that Clark didn't matter.
There's a lot of jealousy and animosity, and that can be understood, right? If you've been a VP of the league in the past, yet you were unable to achieve the.
This wasn't just about basketball anymore. It wasn't about fouls. It wasn't just drama. It became personal. What if it wasn't just about the game, but something much deeper? A'ja Wilson didn't hold back when she said it. Race was a huge factor. And when a 3-time MVP drops a truth bomb like that, you have to listen.
Unable to achieve the visibility and perhaps the endorsements that Caitlin Clark has received right out of the gate, it shows that it's normal to assume that there would be some degree of resentment. However, the concern is that resentment is then leading to targeting on the court.
Veteran black players who had been grinding in the league for years without the same media love or endorsement deals were clearly frustrated. They watched a white rookie come in and steal the spotlight. And let's be honest, they weren't happy about it.
Because Ms. Clark's civil rights are being violated as she is targeted on the court, the basketball court, and no one's protecting her. Is that what you're saying?
That's correct.
But when that frustration turned into on-court retaliation, that's where the problem really started. And Caitlin Clark, she stayed silent.
Make sure that does not happen. That is the weirdest thing in the world, but it is what it is, and I'm glad that Caitlin has a great head on her shoulders.
And the worst part? Her own teammates had to call out the league for failing to protect her. Sophie Cunningham, a fellow player, straight up admitted it. The WNBA wasn't doing enough to protect their star. Can you believe that? This wasn't just from opponents. This was from the league itself.
Basically done for the WNBA what Michael Jordan did for the NBA.
When you're taking cheap shots week after week and no one does anything about it, that's not basketball. That's a lawsuit waiting to happen. Here's the thing. This whole situation could easily be seen as a hostile work environment.
And the amount Caitlin Clark is being fouled compared to any of her peers in the league, or the treatment that she receives compared to any other top stars in any other leagues, there's no comparison to it.
Under Title VII of the Civil Rights Act, you don't need slurs to prove discrimination, just a pattern of neglect and unequal treatment.
Instead of protecting its transformative star, the league's leadership ignores the relentless targeting of Miss Clark, treating its greatest asset as if she were a PR headache.
But it goes beyond just fouls and stats. It's about the league's failure to protect its most valuable asset. How does the league ignore its biggest star?
Physicality has very obviously ratcheted down. It's been tame.
Instead of celebrating Caitlin Clark, they've downplayed her at every turn. From media silencing to the Olympic snub, it's clear the league had no intention of letting her have her moment.
It's about what she represents. Before she ever came along, there were a lot of outstanding basketball players who happened to be black females.
But the backlash wasn't just from fans, it was from the players too. When fans realized Clark wouldn't be there for the All-Star game, ratings plummeted by 55%. The WNBA's fan base wasn't just upset, they were out. They'd come for Caitlin Clark, and when she wasn't there, they left.
Maybe Caitlin Clark's civil rights are actually being violated. Is her right to a peaceful workplace, a non-hostile work environment, are those rights being violated?
And here we are now. The WNBA isn't just dealing with a PR nightmare, it's dealing with a potential legal time bomb. What happens when federal agencies start asking questions? Lawsuits for discrimination, hostile work environment, and even accusations of racial bias could soon be the next headline. But here's the twist. The federal government is already getting involved. Remember when the Department of Justice and the Labor Department started sniffing around? This isn't a rumor. Federal agencies are getting involved. This could end up being one of the most significant legal battles in sports history.
So she's facing a hostile work environment. Unfortunately, it appears that it does impact a protected class, her race, as evidenced by quotes by players in the league. And there is a federal element here to where the government can intervene, and we've already seen this.
Now let's talk about the biggest mystery here, the media blackout. How is it possible that the one player who brought the WNBA into the spotlight is getting ignored by the very outlets that should be celebrating her? Caitlin Clark has single-handedly brought the WNBA into mainstream conversations, but you wouldn't know it from the media's coverage. Where are the in-depth interviews, the investigative pieces, the documentaries? The silence is deafening, isn't it? When Clark made waves, you'd think there'd be think pieces left and right, news specials, and full coverage of her rise. But But no,
Time race has really gotten to this level. Why do you think the referees don't protect her more?
I think that's a great question. And I think the one key that, the 17% of flagrant fouls that she receives versus others, that's just based on calls that have actually been, that the referees actually call.
and let's talk about the WNBA's owners, who's really calling the shots here. The franchise owners should be backing Caitlin Clark, the very player who's brought in fans, revenue, and brand value. But instead of protecting her, some owners are adding fuel to the fire. It gets worse. One owner actually downplayed her importance. Take Sheila Johnson, for example, owner of the Mystics. Instead of supporting the star who's responsible for much of the league's growth, she casually suggested that other players deserved the spotlight more. Think about that. The person responsible for the WNBA's explosive growth and the owner of one of the teams didn't even back her. No wonder fans are starting to question the league's priorities. But it's not just about the owners either.
But Caitlin Clark doesn't get to play under these circumstances, where these girls are just going out there and playing basketball.
Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA with nothing but talent and the drive to succeed, and in return, she was targeted, ignored, and ultimately left to pick up the pieces of a broken league. How could a player who single-handedly revived a league be treated this way? From the brutal fouls to the lack of media coverage, from the silence of the WNBA owners to the looming threat of legal action, the story of Caitlin Clark isn't just about one player. It's about a system failing to protect its most valuable assets. But this isn't over, not by a long shot. The truth is coming out, and it's only a matter of time before the WNBA has to face the music. Stay tuned, because we're not done exposing the mess behind the game.
Clark shattered fan vote records with 1.29 million All-Star votes, yet ranked only 9th among guards on the player ballot.
Caitlin Clark came into the WNBA with nothing but talent and the drive to succeed, and in return, she was targeted, ignored, and ultimately left to pick up the pieces of a broken league. How could a player who single-handedly revived a league be treated this way? From the brutal fouls to the lack of media coverage, from the silence of the WNBA owners to the looming threat of legal action, the story of Caitlin Clark isn't just about one player. It's about a system failing to protect its most valuable assets. But this isn't over, not by a long shot. The truth is coming out, and it's only a matter of time before the WNBA has to face the music. Stay tuned, because we're not done exposing the mess behind the game.